Our guest today on Catching Up is the first general manager in BlueClaws history. It's Geoff Brown. Joined the team November of 1999, about 16, 17 months before the first ever game in April of '01. Geoff, how are you?
I'm great, Greg. Thank you. Good to reconnect. Good to see you.
Yeah. Does it feel like it's been 20 years or almost 20 years now? This would have been the 20th season.
It's hard to believe. It's shocking how quickly that all went.
So let's go back to the beginning. I know you had worked in Trenton and then went to Norwich and then came to Lakewood. When you were in Trenton, was there an indication, because it was at the time the same ownership group that would open Lakewood, was there an indication at the time when you were in Trenton that they were trying to get a team over here on the eastern part of the state?
I don't think there was. I don't recall a specific effort to get out there, but I do remember that we were drawing a lot of people from the shore. Ocean and Monmouth County were coming out to Trenton in some pretty big numbers. So X amount of years later, it didn't shock me that they circled that area as a place to put a new team.
How did you end up here?
I was fortunate. I mean, fortunately that the Trenton group was then the Lakewood group, and so I had a 3-year relationship with him, or I worked with him for 3 years and knew him for 6 years, and got on the interview list and then took it from there.
So you come in November of '99. There's nothing, right? There's no stadium. They haven't broken ground. They haven't even probably finished the architectural plans. The whole stadium's a forest, essentially.
Yep.
Give us an idea of, where were you guys working? How did you kind of get everything going? You're coordinating. Obviously, you need a name, you need a logo, you need to sell tickets, and they need to build the stadium.
Yep. So we is John Clark and myself. John is still in baseball. He's with the Boston Red Sox now. John and I hit the ground in Lakewood January 3rd or 2nd of 2000, right? So we were doing some work from Connecticut. We were both working for the Norwich Navigators. So for the month of December, we were up in Connecticut. The announcement had happened in late November. We were doing some work while we were still in Connecticut and wrapping up there. Hit the ground in early January. We had Joe Caruso, one of the owners, had found us an office to lease, but wasn't ready for the first 3 weeks. It wasn't going to be ready until late January. So we were holed up on our landlord's, the office space landlord's, his office's conference room. So we had a conference room table, the two of us. The very first thing we did, we walked in that day. We each had a box of stuff that we had stolen from Norwich. Might have been our stuff, might have been the Navigator stuff. Who knows at this point? But the first thing we did is we went out and bought 2 cell phones because there was no way to communicate with anybody, and nobody really knew that we were in town. So that was probably the first thing we did. And I think, I don't know if it was the second thing we did, but we drove around and walked into as many Chamber of Commerce buildings or offices that we could. Almost immediately got involved in as many chambers as we could. And I think the number became 14 pretty quickly. So it was an important way for us to connect with the business community. And then, as we got into our office, one of the first, we needed to kind of roll out the red carpet, announce that we had an office, we were in business. We launched the Name the Team contest, which, Guy, you probably know this better than I. It was 6,000 entries, something to that effect. So we had a lot of fun with that. Business, got the business cards going, got the letterhead going, got all the stuff to kind of get an office going.
I bet it was a lot easier to work remotely today, as we all have been doing, than it would have been 20 years ago. You wish you had Zoom, probably.
Yeah, no doubt. I do recall there was again, it was early January, and it was snowing. There was 4 or 5 inches of snow on the ground, and I'm up getting ready for work, and God, this is gonna stink. It's gonna be tough to get into work. And I'm like, wait a minute, no one actually knows we're here. Why am I, busting it to get into the office and fight storm and traffic and whatever else? So I guess that was my first working remotely experience, because we said that wasn't the risk reward wasn't there.
So let's do the stadium part, I guess. How involved were you when you came in? Did they have a layout of the stadium? Was it just general, concepts? Was it specific? How involved were you? as they were designing it, and then how often would you go over there after they broke ground?
Yeah, so the plans are pretty far along. They weren't finalized. Shoot, they weren't finalized until like a month before
Yeah.
completion, I think. Yeah, I know there were some things we added, right at the end. So we were involved. John and I and the ownership group were involved the entire time. Obviously, the ownership group. So we went over. We had weekly meetings, weekly construction meetings. So let's see. So ground was broken. They cleared the land. I think it was April of 2000.
Yeah, it was
Might have been.
April officially. If that's when the ceremony was, yeah.
Okay, so and then at that point there was this weekly construction meetings. We would go over to the construction trailer every week and kind of sit in as uh, they went through the week of progress, and absolutely participated in it and offered up our thoughts. We then went over, especially later on, we went over all the time. We had our hard hats, and we had permission to walk around with some whether it was potential sponsors or season ticket holders, or certain times when we were able to get over there. Usually towards the end of the day. But yeah, it was going back to when they cleared, it was like 56-acre property, totally covered in trees, and to kind of watch them clear that out all of a sudden and go from there, it was fun, really fun to be a part of that from that point all the way until opening it up.
At what point did it become real for you? Was it when they put the first beams up, when you had the ceremony, when they laid the sod?
Oh man, I'd say all the above. It just became more and more real. First there was the groundbreaking ceremony, which was in the rain, and then fast forward to the opening day in the rain. But every single, so we did the groundbreaking, that became real, and then stuff started coming at, growing out of the ground, right? The beams are coming out of the ground, or then then we had a ceremony when the last beam went into place. So every momentous occasion you're stepping back, I'm like, man, this might actually happen.
Yeah. What was your favorite little nook and cranny of the park? Your favorite element there of the park?
I always loved the berms. I always loved the fact that you could walk all the way around, and that the berms were such a highlight of the building, of the ballpark. And that I was very afraid that they weren't going to last. That there's no way we're growing grass there, and people are going to sit in it, all season long, and it wasn't going to end up being dirt. And so that was something that we talked a lot about, and the grounds crew from day one made sure that was something that they knew that was going to be a highlight of the ballpark, and wanted to keep it in top shape, and it still is. So that was always neat. I like the rat trap out in right center field as well. It's a great vantage point of watching the game. I like that it made a asymmetrical outfield wall.
Yeah.
Little kink out there. So didn't come into play too much because it was so, it's such a pitcher's park. But it was neat that there was a couple of oddities out there in right and left center field.
I know it was always going to be a Phillies affiliate. When did you start working with them regularly?
Probably, I mean, really, they were there for the groundbreaking,
Yeah.
so, but at that point, and I think, I don't know if it was that year or the following year was the first year I went down to spring training, but, they were in touch all the time. I don't recall them being highly invested in the construction of the ballpark. They clearly, reviewed all of the player elements, the clubhouse, the batting cage, the dugouts, all that stuff. But so I don't really remember when I was on the phone with them weekly or even daily. But I know from the get-go they were really excited about the project, and for me as a Phillies fan growing up, I mean that was good stuff. Yeah, that was good stuff from day one.
And the park's held up over 20 years. It's still one of the better minor league parks, certainly A-ball parks. So at the time, it was, I'm sure, top notch. Among any minor league park. That was kind of before the modern boom, where there have been so many built over the last 2 decades. But it's held up very well.
Oh, it's a fabulous building. It's been a fabulous building from day one. And you can tell from the construction, during the construction, like, wow, this thing is really going to lay out well. And We did in the summer that we didn't have games. We hit as many different ballparks that we could drive to. We hit all the other affiliated was there were 2 affiliated teams, New Jersey, plus the independent teams. Went out to Long Island, and that the designer, the architect of our ballpark was also Long Island. So we went out there and were able to see some consistencies in the design and see some of the things we'd only seen in plans. So that was helpful. And then over the course of, I guess these next 20 years, I was able to get to a bunch of ballparks as you are, of course. And it's great. It was always great to compare ours favorably to almost every place we went to.
So when you go out from a business standpoint, you're trying to sell tickets, you're trying to sell sponsorships, you have no database. I guess you have a phone book, but you have no real database. How did you try to get the word out there about the team? And then what was the response from the community?
Well, two things. One, mentioned the chamber already, trying to get in as many chamber meetings and chamber events as we possibly can to meet the business community. But then we also quickly got into a great relationship with the Asbury Park Press, with the local radio stations and radio groups to help us get the word out to the general public. And everybody was very, very much into it. They wanted it to happen. They wanted to succeed, and they quickly, told us, hey, you need to be part of the community. The community will give to you, but you got to give to the community. So we did that almost from the very beginning. But the relationships with the local media was huge for us to help generate the fan base or the interest or the database. And again, the chambers and the other organizations were really helpful getting into those groups. But from a standpoint of really not having anything to tour with people, I can specifically remember taking our plans around to meetings specifically with luxury suite holders as we were bringing luxury suite holders, signing them. What's that? Yeah, that. But not only that, but then the actual layout of what the luxury suite level would look like, with the field on it as well. And I can remember laying it out on conference room tables. And I'll give you one specific example. I was with Larry Bathgate from Bathgate, Wegner and Wolf, who I believe is still a suite holder there 20 years later. And we were laying the plans out on this conference room table, and we spent like 5 minutes trying to figure out where the sun's going to set, and all right, where's the prevailing wind? I want a nice summer breeze, and then he ended up picking one down the first base line, and then there was somebody else who wanted one. He wanted one closer to home plate because he had young kids at the time, and his rationale was more foul balls were going to go there than anywhere else. So
was that confirmed later?
You know what? I don't know. I popped into the suites as many games as I could, and I know he got his fair share of foul balls. Was it more than others? Who knows? But I do remember that one. So those were the 2 specific ones I remember. But yeah, we took those plans on tour. We took the color renderings on tour with us. And showed them to as many people in as many situations as we could, and then eventually we're able to, months later, bring people out into the building, into the ballpark.
You had referenced earlier the Name the Team contest. You got 5,000-6,000 submissions. How did you narrow it down? How'd you settle on BlueClaws? Again, you probably know this better. I think that was suggested a good number of times. That made our finalist. I think I've said this publicly before. I wanted land sharks. I was all about land sharks, and I probably oversold it. And that one had been suggested. It was a finalist. And then the group of people, ownership, myself, John, and I forget exactly who else was on board at that time, kind of zoomed in on the BlueClaws. And I liked it. I just happened to like land shark. I don't even know why I was so hooked on it at that point, but BlueClaws was a great name. It was and it's proved to be a tremendous name for the franchise. So then of the people that submitted it, we picked 2 winners to then
officially be the representatives of the name the team contest. One was a woman, one was a kid, and they both got to come out on opening day and celebrate their name.
So now you got the name. Now you need the logo. What was the process?
Oh man, I forget that process. I forget where we did. I forget how we did that. I remember the jingle. I remember who we used for the jingle, which you still use,
that.
correct?
Still use it, yeah.
Which unfortunately, Fran has passed. The gentleman who wrote that song has passed away a few years ago. But I don't remember. I don't remember the logo.
You did the name unveiling right before the logo. There were like two separate events.
Mm-hmm. That rings a bell.
And then I know you did the logo and uniforms in downtown Lakewood you've told me that with like Lakewood High School players.
Yes. Yeah.
But you probably just hired a couple guys. They gave you a few and you picked one, probably, right?
Yeah. I remember more details of when we actually tweaked the logo and changed it. That was more of a process. The first one, I'm blank. That's funny.
Wow,
that's
funny.
I do remember this. Because when I was in Trenton, and we unveiled the uniforms there, I got suckered into being the model for the uniform. So when we did it in Lakewood, I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm not making anybody else do it. Let's go find some Lakewood high school kids to do it. So,
and you probably made their day. That was a cool experience. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a lot of the construction work was done in the winter. How was the weather that winter, 2000 into 2001? And was there a time when maybe because of the weather, you're like, this is going to be really tight to the wire?
I think we thought that the whole time that, it was a tight window, right? Groundbreaking in April, first pitch in April.
Yeah.
But the construction company, the town, everybody was everybody was working very well together. Number two, they had confidence that they could get it done. And there was a few things that either got done late or had to get redone. And there was a couple of fines at the very end. We realized, like a month ago, that there was no like trash compactor in the plants. And for somehow that got missed. And then all of a sudden, we were able to pull lay down a concrete pad so we can put in a trash compactor. But like how that got missed, it happens when there's 8 million things on a list of things to do.
That's funny. That was one of my questions. Was there anything that you forgot, like a trash compactor or like paper towels or forks for the luxury suites? Was there anything on like opening or April 10th before April 11th? We're like, we forgot that, or like a cleaning.
I don't remember the date. I don't remember the day before, so to speak, but the trash compactor, like a month out, was definitely one of them. And then there was another one, and it was again a month, maybe 2 months out, where we realized in the concession stands there weren't any pass-through windows, right? So you got your prep and your cooking area in the back, and then you got your service area in the front, and there was one door to get everything back and forth. And there was supposed to be 3, maybe 4 pass-through windows where you
save a lot of time.
Yeah. So we had to go back in and I mean, I didn't do it, but they had to go back in and knock holes in the walls and so that we could install some pass-throughs. So those are the 2 I do remember. I do remember the night before late, we were putting together those standing tables and the picnic tables. I think they had just arrived. I don't think we forgot, look, there's a whole bunch of boxes, what's in them. I think they just got there. So we were putting those together around midnight. That week, the other thing I do remember, and I remember recommending this because it went so well to other ballparks or teams that were opening up ballparks, where we came in and did a stadium flush. Or I forget what we called it, but we did it we actually brought in the morning DJ of, it might have been The Point. He came in with a whole bunch of listeners, and we had a listener at every single toilet, every single urinal flush at the same time, because we wanted to make sure that the plumbing would work with a full ballpark, right? So if every toilet works at the same time, okay, we're pretty good. So, and the fact, I don't remember why we brought I thought it was pretty unique to get
Yeah.
radio coverage, but it went pretty well. And oh, by the way, the plumbing worked, so we were able to open up later. If I'm not mistaken, that happened like the week of. So I don't know what would have happened if it didn't work, but I'm glad it worked.
So let's do some of the. Well, actually, one more. What do you remember about opening night besides that it rained?
I actually remember the second night even more because we threw a no-hitter the second night.
Buck trot.
Yeah. So what made that number one? Again, look this up, or you've probably told me this over the years. We had a no-hitter in our ballpark before we hit a home run. Like that can't
Yep.
have happened somewhere else. Like that, we might be the only ballpark that's ever happened. The other part of that I remember is that second night, the Phillies brought a bus or 2 bus loads of people. They were sitting up in the first base party deck. And it was now a doubleheader, right? So it's an off day for the Phillies. They bring 100 employees who were into it, but it was an off day and they want to go home, right? So now that it's a doubleheader, the second game starts, and you could kind of tell they're kind of itching to get out of there. It's an hour and 15 minutes back to Philly, let alone wherever they live. And David Montgomery, man, I love David Montgomery. He would never leave games early. I mean, that was ever, wherever he was. If he was in Philly, if he went to visit a minor league team, he never left the game early. But people were getting to him like, David, you got 100 employees. They kind of want to go home, and so David was leaning towards letting the buses go, and then Buck Trot hasn't given up a hit. He hasn't given up a hit, so now he's like, you guys can't. Now he's changed tunes. He's like, you cannot leave. Our pitcher is throwing a no hitter. So all 100 Phillies employees had to stay. And then obviously Buck Trot finished off the no hitter, which was kind of wild. So I actually remember that second game, and maybe I blanked out the stinky part of a rain. I couldn't even tell you how many innings we played that first night.
It was 4.5.
4.5. Okay.
4, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do some of the more notable moments, just to kind of go back and look. So the last game of the 2002 season, you have 13,003. That's the largest crowd by almost 3,000. I've been here for a couple of tens. I think 10,100. Where'd you put the other 3,000 people?
There wasn't an inch of grass or an inch on the concourse. Like there was nowhere to go. So yeah, I would not recommend 13,000. I'm not even sure I would recommend 10,000 at this point. Well, at this point, code, you're going to get way
yeah. Well, sure.
So, but the reasons or some 13,000 happen is you have these season-long promotions every year, and that year all of them happen to work, I guess, and all of these ticket offers or promotions or whatever, they were all kind of wrapping up on that last game, and mostly what we did was the promotions were like Monday through Thursday games, and this happened to be a Monday night, so they were still good for that night. The other reason is Gavin Floyd was pitching, right? Gavin Floyd is the 4th overall pick. He's the bonus baby, and like 2 weeks earlier, he had thrown a no-hitter and lost. So it's awesome to throw a no-hitter. It's noteworthy, it's a national story when you lose a no-hitter, and he did. So people wanted to come out and see that. And then
I think he made the error, right?
And he made the error. If I'm not mistaken, it was a walk, sacrifice bunt, and then the error, he airmailed the throw. And then I don't even know. I don't think he came around and scored. It might have been a sac fly or a infield ground out or something. But yeah, he lost 1-0 with no hits. So people wanted to see, hey, that's cool. Let's go watch this kid pitch. Also beautiful beautiful Monday night, last week of the summer, all that stuff, and all these ticket offers. And it was like, wow, there's going to be a lot of people coming. So the day before, during the Sunday game, one of our season ticket holders was the Ocean County Fire Marshal. I don't even know if he's still a season ticket holder. But I went there, and he was super supportive and was great, especially with the fireworks shows, all that stuff. And I went down to him, and I'm like, hey, we're going to have a big crowd tomorrow, probably our biggest crowd ever. And he's like, great, which I took as a legal contract to let everybody in. I just said, okay, well, that's good.
Who wouldn't?
So, it was just, there was just people coming from everywhere. It's packed, it's packed, it's packed. So it's like the fifth, sixth inning. I walk into the box office, and I'm like, how many people are here? I've no, it's just chaos outside. And Jeremy, the ticket director, said there's 13,000. I'm like, 13,000 and what? He's like, no, it's exactly 13,000. I'm like, that can't be. There's no way it's a round number like that. There's no way.
And even if it is, you can't announce that.
I can't tell.
Yeah.
So I go back in like 20 minutes later. He goes, yeah, 3 people just walked up and bought a ticket. So it's 13,003. And this is like the 7th inning. So the other part of that game that was particularly that made it even more challenging is it took a long time to get everybody into the building. We knew it was going to take a long time to get everybody the heck out of there, having no idea, parking, traffic, all that. But the game lasted like 2 hours and like 5 minutes or something to that effect.
Of course, right?
So we just get them in, and now we got to turn them back around. And it wasn't even about selling concessions or merchandise, because you couldn't move, you couldn't get to the concession line. So it wasn't even a money thing. I just needed people to spread out. I needed like a nice 4-hour game to get everybody out of there. So I go down into the clubhouse after the game, and I don't usually do this, but now I'm all feeling all like, wow, we just did this. And I see Gavin Floyd, who's now thrown like 8 innings of 1-run ball, another dominant performance. I'm like, Gavin, that was awesome, but you killed me. He's like, what? This kid, I don't even think he was, I know he wasn't 21. He might have been 19. He has no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, that game was, you were so good. The game was too quick. And I had to kick, it's madness out there because you pitched too well. I still don't think he got it when I explained it, but I do remember telling him that.
Did you have fireworks?
I don't believe we did. I don't think we did.
Yeah, because if you had to clear the berm, you couldn't have done it.
No.
There's no way.
Yeah. No chance.
So a year later, May of 2003, your groundskeeper, Bill Butler, got ejected from a game. What do you remember about that night? And we had Bill on a few months ago. He was awesome. Funny story. What do you remember?
I did see that. That was pretty good. And he said some things I did not remember. What I specifically remember is when he had the piece of paper pointing at the radar. It's just kind of doing one of these, which again you wouldn't do at this point because you'd be showing them on the phone. And so I remember that. I remember bringing the piece of paper out, and then I remember immediately after he gets tossed, the rain starts coming down, and the umps are yelling, "Hey, put the tarp on!" And I, wise ass, like, you just kicked my groundskeeper out. I don't know how to do it or something, which, we knew how to do it. We got it on. But yeah, that was fun. And then one of your predecessors, Neil Solantz, the next morning he comes into our office, into my office, and he's like, I've spent all night, and I believe it when he said, I've spent all night looking, and I've never heard of, I couldn't find anywhere else where a groundskeeper got kicked out of a game. He goes, I think this was the first. So I'm like, well, run with it. Go ahead. And he put that thing out there everywhere. So those are the things that come to mind for me.
This is my favorite, and this is everybody's favorite story. The fireworks in the 8th inning. So this is July of 2007. Playing Lake County here. It's the last day of a series. So I'll let you pick it up from there.
Wait, what month was it?
It was July. It wasn't the 4th. I think it was the 6th. Like, you had a 3-game series, 4, 5, 6, and then everybody's leaving town after the 6th.
So yeah, it was July. So here we are. We're most of the way through the season, and the manager that year, Steve Roadcap, we got along great. But when it rained, man, you couldn't have 1 square inch of water anywhere, or he wouldn't play. Just wouldn't do it. He just no. So, and it was kind of a rainy week, and all week long we're fighting the weather, fighting him on, come on, let's play. This is good. This is more than acceptable. The umps are good with it, all that stuff. So we get into the 8th inning of a game, and it's a blowout. It's 7-1, 8-1, whatever the score. Like the game's over. And oh, by the way, I think both teams stunk that year. So like nobody's going into the playoffs. So 8th inning, one of those 10-minute, at most 10-minute pour down thunderstorms happened, to the point where nobody leaves because you can't get out. They wanted to see the fireworks anyway. Rain leaves, stars come back out immediately, right? It's a beautiful night again. but I know that Rhodey he's going to make us rake the field for hours or an hour or whatever. So I went to him and the umpires. I'm like, hey, we got an hour here. Here's the plan. It's going to take us an hour to get this field ready. I got 8,000 people. The game's over. All we want is game's not over, but it's 8-1, so it's over. Yeah. 3 outs away. I got 12 minutes of fireworks, 14 minutes of fireworks. I'm going to rake for an hour. I'm going to turn the lights off, blow the fireworks. I'll rake the whole time. And they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that. Can't do that. So like, I walk out to center field. I'm stewing. I'm kind of kicking around in the water out there. And I called to Brandon Marana, the ops guy. I'm like, the fireworks, they get wet? He's like, no, they were covered. I'm like, so we could he's like, yeah, they're ready to go. So like I chew on that for another minute. I'm like, oh hell, here we go. I'm like, all right, kill the lights, blow them up, let's go. So with that, fireworks start, crowd, who again, the whole crowd's there. They start cheering. They're all about it. I see the visiting team immediately. The Lake County immediately grabs their stuff right out of the dugout up the tunnel, and they're gone. I look over to our dugout. They're doing the same thing. I'm like, God, this may not go great. So great fireworks show. We kept raking. Did we forfeit? There was officially a forfeit. I forget exactly.
No, you should have, but they were nice. Well, first of all, the smoke, the wind blew the smoke back.
Yeah. Okay. So getting back to that, then which never happens.
Never happened. I've seen them.
Never happens.
I've seen probably, I don't know, 150 fireworks shows in this building, and another 100 or whatever in other build. Never. That's the only time it's ever happened.
So in this particular case, the wind's blowing in. We had the doors to the store propped open. Smoke from the fireworks goes into the store and sets off the fire alarms. Again, it's never happened. It never happened there.
The ones up here too, the sweet ones.
It set off the whole building.
Yeah.
It set off the whole building because the smoke went inside into the store. So now we've got that going on. We turned it off pretty quickly. The fans, there was no panic or anything with the fans. I think they figured that there was, because it was a smoky fireworks show. So I think they got it. And then, game's over. The other team's on the bus 20 minutes later. They're leaving town. A lot of yelling back and forth. But 8,000 fans saw a fireworks show.
Their manager called their radio announcer on his cell phone and said, all right, pack up, we're leaving. And the guy, I'm in the booth with him. His name is Craig Dees. And he said, we have 3 more outs, right? He's like, pack your stuff up. We're leaving. It's like, okay. And he packed up and they left. Now, the league president at the time was John Henry Moss. Probably that should have been a forfeit, probably. But it was the last day of the series. So they came back in August, played 5 minutes, got 3 outs, and then played the regular game. But
I still get
people
grief
still
for
give
that
you
one.
crap for that one, right?
Yeah, I still get a little grief. A lot of grief comes up quite often.
But it was worth it. You get the story.
I also remember going when I was right after the fact, after the game, after the fire alarm goes off. I see our one of our sponsors was Shore Point Distributors, right? Our beer guys. And I'm like, hey, if this goes south for me, I'm going to need your best beer route you got, your best sales route. And he's like, you got it. That was awesome.
That was a good one. All right, let me just have you touch on a few people that you got to work with here. What you remember about working with them, and how about your first manager, Greg Legg.
Oh, Legger's best. Legger's best. It's hard to believe we've now known each other 20 years. Where was he supposed to be this year? I don't even know.
Lehigh.
Was he?
He was one of the coaches in Lehigh. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great, and that first team wasn't tremendous, didn't have a lot of prospects, and he was so good with them, so good to work with. Really enjoyed it, and that whole first coaching staff. I don't know if you're going to ask about some of those other names, but that whole first coaching staff with Rod Nichols and Jeff Manto was fantastic. I think they enjoyed being in a brand new ballpark. They were coming from a brand new ballpark down there, but in Clearwater, but I think they really enjoyed it. I'll give you one more. I'll give you a Rod Nichols story. Again, year one, we're rolling out all this pregame stuff. the games never started on time. They were always, instead of 7:05, it was 7:07, 7:08. And Rod used to just love, I mean, he was a jokester. He used to love tormenting our staff about the game starting 2 minutes late. Like, people were scared, like legitimately scared to go in the dugout if we were going to be late because the anthem took a minute and a half instead of a minute. And that, for like the first month, they were terrified, and then they got his shtick and figured it out. So, and then Manto, Manto came back then as the manager the next year. So I really enjoyed working with that whole crew. And I guess I've stayed in touch mostly with Manto, but I had seen Legger and Nichols, still with the Phillies, when I went to spring training for years after that.
I always felt bad for Allegra on one thing I think it was 11. Yeah, it was 11. Was his 30th year with the Phillies, and he got the Vukovic Award at Citizens Bank Park, and then we had this big ceremony here at a game, and we were going to do it. We picked a Friday night in August. A bunch of the players recorded a video that we were going to play. We had a framed jersey, and that was the hurricane. It was Irene was coming that weekend. So we played Friday, but the governor had closed. He shut down the parkway. There were like there were like a few hundred people here instead of like an 8,000 crowd because of the hurricane. That would have been fall. He deserved the bigger ceremony than he got. You touched on Manto. How about Mark Parent?
Oh, Parent was great. I enjoyed him. To be honest with you, I never saw a guy, when I first met him. No, I can't tell that story. Forget it. Okay. Skip. No, when I first met him, I went down to spring training, took the coaching staff out to dinner, and he orders 2 beers. And I was like, oh, I want to get this kind. He goes, no, those are for me. So, he just knocks back a couple, he's a long, hot day and hits a couple beers. I look over, I forget who the pitching coach was. Oh, it was Schrank. I look over, he goes, oh yeah, he goes, happens all the time. I was like, so the other thing I thought was particularly cool was that after he retired, he had become friends with Garth Brooks when Garth Brooks did spring training with the Padres, and he was there, and he became security for Garth Brooks. Like, he's really close friends, or was really close friends with him, and worked security with him. So loves talking about that with him.
There's a video you can find it of when he brought Garth Brooks out to Chicago when he was coaching with the White Sox, and he like took BP for the day and showed him around, and they had a nice little.
Oh, video. Nice.
How about Dusty Wathan?
Oh, Dusty's great. What's funny? Somebody sent me it might have been you that sent me this. First of all, I can't believe my kid's going to college. I can't believe his kid's also going to college, going to play baseball at Coastal or something like that.
Charlotte?
Carolina.
Coastal? What's that? One of those. Yeah. Maybe Charlotte. Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, so it was kind of neat because when Dusty was here, his family was with him, and we had kids very, close to, if not the same exact age. So enjoyed him from a family standpoint, but enjoyed him as a manager and watching him do what he was doing. So it's fun to watch him up in the big leagues these days.
And then how about Steve Shrink?
Yeah, unfortunately, I love Schrank. Loved him. I feel bad I've lost touch with him. I don't even know where he is these days.
I think he's running his own pitching academy company.
Oh, nice. I'll give you another one that I did a manager that I did just bump into not over a year ago, but in my job with the NBA, I was traveling around to different G League teams, and the team in Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Blue, had every year they have a game up in Wichita. And so I'm like, all right, I'll go to that one. And so I go out there, and it was like one of those school day games, right? They had an 11 o'clock game, and I'm in the arena in Wichita. So now I've known I'm going there for like 3 weeks, but I'm now in the arena in Wichita, and I'm like, wait a minute, PJ Forbes lived in Wichita. I haven't talked to PJ in like 5 or 6 years since he got out of baseball. And I go into my phone, and somehow I still had a number that worked for him, and it was his home phone number. And I'm I apologize for the lack of notice. I can't believe I just thought of this now. If you get this, I'm literally here. Like, my flight was out at like 6 o'clock that night. And sure enough, and who checks their home phone anymore, right? Sure enough, his wife checks it, gives it to him. He calls me later. He goes, wait, seriously? We don't talk for 5 years and you're giving me 4 hours notice?
4 hours.
So the game's over. And we went out and we got a quick bite to eat before I headed to the airport. So he's still in Wichita working something in the train industry. So I thought
Like
that was
railroad train?
What?
Like railroad?
Railroad. He's railroad. He's in the railroad business.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
We'll have to catch up with him. That's awesome. And then this one, Sam Christopher, who was heavily supportive of the team in a huge way in the years leading into the BlueClaws coming in, and then he wouldn't miss a game. He probably didn't miss more than 5 games in the first 10 years of the team.
Oh, he was great. He was great. So supportive, such a nice man, and did us such favors with every. He spent more time going around town telling people about us than anybody. There's no doubt. And gosh, what was he in the business? 50 years. He knew everybody in Ocean County and Ocean and Monmouth County. So it was great. It was very well deserved that the press box up there is named after him. And it was great. He came to every game.
Yeah. Cole Hamels.
Cole was great, right? Shoot, what was he, 19? I think he was 19 when he was with us. It's funny, like, again, until recently, I think I had because he was 19, I didn't even have his number. I had his mom's phone number because I would have to call her once in a while for some reason. But he was dominant when he was there. And the story that I remember with that one is that he had pitched a game in June or early July. It was a school day. It was a school day or a camp day, and he pitched 6 perfect innings, dominant innings, and he hit his pitch count, so they took him out. But nobody noticed because it was 8,000 kids screaming. It was the only people that noticed, like the 400 seniors that were there, that they were paying attention. Everybody else didn't care. So, but then like his next 4 or 5 starts just all happened to be on the road. And I'm like, man, his numbers were so good. People wanted to see him pitch. And this was maybe the one and only time I ever called the Phillies to ask them a baseball question or make a baseball request. And I said, listen, there's an off day. Can we skip this 5th starter, who I don't remember who it was, and pitch Hamels on his regular time because he hasn't pitched at home in a month? And Steve Novarita was like, Geoff, you know what? I appreciate you asking that question and asking it the way you did it, whatever. But yeah, we're promoting him tomorrow, so it really doesn't matter. So if he pitched 10 or 15 games, I think like 2 of them were at home, or 3, or whatever the number was.
I think it was 4 out of 13, something like that. Okay,
there you go. And at the end, there wasn't one for like the last 4 or 5 of them, as I recall.
Yeah. Well, we could do this for probably 4 hours, but I appreciate a few minutes. Hopefully we hit on some good stories for everybody. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it, and we'll talk again soon. Keep up the good work with the NBA, and hopefully we'll get you back at a BlueClaws game here when we have one next year.
Very good, great. Thank you for the invite. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we got to get you out for the opening day next year, because that will be the 20th opening day and the 20th anniversary. It'll be a whole. We'll have to figure it out, but opening day, the 20th opening day will be the next one. So we'll get you definitely out here for that one.
Awesome. I'm in. Look forward to it.
Thanks, Geoff.